Welcome back. Now, it has taken 18 months and a severe profit hit, but Astral has finally has a permit to start vaccinating its broiler breeding stock against the bird flu. In 2023, the company was forced to cull over 1 million birds due to the worst outbreak of the virus, costing the group 400 million rand during the period. Gary Arnold, CEO of Astral Foods, joins us to discuss this milestone, its cost implications, and overall meaning for food security. Gary, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. So after 18 months, the use of a vaccine for a particular bird flu strain known as H5, of course, being approved, a milestone, yes, but why did it take so long to approve this vaccination, considering the risks that bird flu poses to the poultry industry players?
Yeah, good day. Good day to you and your viewers. Look, it takes time. The industry, together with the Department of Agriculture, has been working extensively on guidelines around a vaccination strategy. This November 2023, when those initial guidelines were published. Obviously, bird flu vaccination has to be managed very carefully. The guidelines are very strict and compliance is very important. So it takes time to build up a knowledge base with the Department of Agriculture around exactly what those requirements and guidelines are. And of course, then one has to work towards compliance with that set of rules. So, and that has taken time. We embarked on this journey with an application for a number of farms, soon realized that was complicating the process just because of the pure administrative load. We then decided we would apply for one plant, or one farm rather, and that would give us a blueprint towards which we can work with the Department of Agriculture to expand this to other breeding stock or broiler breeding stock farms. So it's a small step forward, but a step in the right direction. And of course, we work through the industry body, the South African Poultry Association, to continue ironing out a vaccination strategy for the country.
And we'll get into, the group's vaccination strategy and some of the other farms you are eyeing for that vaccination process in a bit. Just talk to me about some of the key challenges in implementing this vaccination program under those strict controls that you talk about.
Yeah, look, this vaccination allows the birds to develop an immune response to a highly pathogenic avian influenza infection. Now, typically without that immunity, the birds, as you've seen in the past, and you just stated in the introduction, the birds succumb to the disease, and you are, through the Animal Diseases Act, required to cull them, or in contact poultry, or those infected with the virus, as a disease control measure. The application of the vaccine will give those birds the ability to fight off the disease as humans. With COVID and the flu that circulates this time of the year, you can choose to go for a flu vaccine or not. And I think it works in a similar way. If you've got protection from a vaccination, your body is allowed or is given an opportunity to develop that immunity, and your immune response can then combat the disease. So the same thing with the birds here. And I mean, in the poultry industry or livestock industries, we vaccinate against a number of different diseases. This is just something that's added. Now, the biosecurity of those birds is critical. So to meet the requirements, the farm has to have very good biosecurity in place. And why is that? The reason is that the vaccinated birds, if they become infected by the virus, you might not necessarily pick up that they have been infected by the bird flu virus because they don't die. So they're now able to fight off the disease, but they still may be positively infected with the virus strain.
Okay, and I'll talk.
The risk is that the vaccine masks that infection, and if you move those birds then around your farm or the country or whatever it might be, you risk spreading the virus further afield. So the farm environment itself has to be very strictly controlled, and that is a key component of the vaccination strategy, monitoring and surveillance of a vaccinated poultry flock.
And is this why you are then taking that one farm at a time kind of approach?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we need to ensure that we comply with the regulations. So this will be very closely monitored by not only our in-house veterinary team, but also state veterinarians. So there's a lot of administration behind this. It requires very regular monitoring and surveillance of that flock to make sure, that they do not become infected with the virus, because now that they've been vaccinated, your first sign of any bird flu infection is generally a higher mortality amongst the birds. In other words, they just start dying. You won't necessarily see this now. You might see a production drop, but we've got to make sure that we are able to manage that flock effectively and prevent, a virus spreading further afield. So you've got to act responsibly around the vaccination strategy, and that's why it's taken some time to reach what is quite a high hurdle rate in getting permission to vaccinate for this for highly pathogenic bird flu.
All right. And before I let you go, perhaps you can touch on some of the cost implications and perhaps expand on how this move enhances the industry's preparedness for future outbreaks as well.
Look, we've seen vaccination as a tool that we can add to the tool bag in enabling us to combat the disease. Biosecurity remains your first and foremost, defense. In other words, you need to keep the virus out of your farms as best and as far as you can. That's often easier said than done, as 2023 highlighted. The virus can be carried in the wind and dust from infected farms and infect neighboring farms. But certainly, without vaccination, the cost of losing your livestock or having to cull them is far greater than the cost of vaccinating a bird, which can be anything between R2 to R2.50 a bird, during its productive life cycle. Astral used to have insurance for bird flu, for the risk of bird flu. That insurance cover was withdrawn after the severe outbreak of bird flu in 2023. Now, for that risk cover, we used to pay an insurance premium. We've done our calculations. Effectively, vaccinating our breeding stock just replaces the premium that we used to pay towards insurance cover. And so this is just another line of defense. It's an additional insurance against losing your livestock to bird flu. And so the cost of that is relatively the same to what we were paying previously for risk cover against the disease.
All right, Gary, thanks so much for your time and joining us this afternoon. That was Gary Arnold, CEO of Astral Foods.